February 2021. Winter Storm Uri slams the Great Plains. Minus 26 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind gusts to 58 miles per hour. Across 3 Kansas counties, 42 modern cattle operations go dark. Solar panels are buried under ice. Lithium batteries lose 63% capacity in extreme cold, and backup generators run dry. Livestock begin dying of dehydration within 72 hours. 3 miles from the nearest failure, Harold Fink's 1947 Aermotor Windmill, installed by his Depression-era father, pumps water at maximum capacity, 64 strokes per minute. The harder the wind blows, the faster it pumps. When the renewable energy engineer who had called it obsolete technology shows up desperate for water, Harold asks him a question that will change USDA policy forever. What good is modern technology that only works when you do not need it? Harold Fink stood at the fence line of his 640-acre cattle operation in Jewell County, Kansas, watching the western sky darken to the color of old iron. At 74 years old, he had lived through 53 Kansas winters, and he knew what that particular shade of gray meant. The National Weather Service had been issuing warnings for 3 days. Winter Storm Uri, they called it, a polar vortex descending from the Arctic, bringing temperatures not seen in the Great Plains since 1899. Behind him, the Aermotor Windmill, a Model 702 installed by his father in 1947, creaked and turned in the rising wind. The 20-foot wheel spun lazily, its steel blades catching the afternoon gusts, the pump rod rising and falling with mechanical precision. 27 strokes per minute in a 12-mile-per-hour wind. Harold had counted them 10,000 times. "You are really not going to upgrade that thing?" Ryan Moss's voice came from the gravel driveway. The 37-year-old renewable energy engineer climbed out of his white Ford F-150, emblazoned with the logo of Great Plains Solar Solutions. "I have got the equipment in the truck. We could have your livestock on solar water by tomorrow afternoon, before the storm hits." Harold turned slowly, his weathered face impassive. "Ryan, I appreciate the visit, but that windmill has pumped water for 74 years without electricity, without batteries, and without a single day of downtime that could not be fixed with a wrench and some grease. Why would I fix what is not broken?" Ryan shook his head, pulling out his tablet. "Harold, let me show you the efficiency data. A modern solar pump system with lithium-ion battery backup can deliver 200 gallons per minute, 3 times what that old air motor manages. Plus, you get monitoring through your smartphone, automatic shutoff when tanks are full, and pressure regulation. How much does all that cost when the sun does not shine and the batteries freeze?" Harold interrupted quietly. "That is the beauty of lithium-ion," Ryan said, warming to his pitch. "These batteries maintain 80% capacity down to minus 10 degrees Celsius, and the storm is only supposed to drop us to minus 15, well within range." Harold glanced back at the windmill. The wind had picked up, and the wheel was spinning faster now, 32 strokes per minute. "And when it is minus 20? Minus 25? The forecast says." "Forecasts have been wrong before," Harold said, "but wind is wind. When it is coldest, that is when it blows hardest. That is when the cattle need water most. And that is when that old windmill works best." Ryan slid the tablet back into his bag, frustration evident in his voice. "Mr. Fink, with all due respect, that is Depression-era technology. My grandfather used one of those. We have moved past that." "Your grandfather," Harold said slowly, "knew something we are in danger of forgetting. He knew the difference between technology that serves you and technology you have to serve." Ryan opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. There was no point arguing with a man who had made up his mind. "Well, if you change your mind after the storm, give me a call. I have got 5 installations scheduled for next month." "I expect," Harold said quietly, watching the sky, "that by next month you might have a few cancellations." Winter Storm Uri struck Jewell County at 3:17 in the morning on February 14, 2021. It brought a front of Arctic air that dropped temperatures from 28 degrees Fahrenheit to -4 in less than 90 minutes. By dawn, the mercury had plunged to -12. By noon, -18. By sunset on February 15th, the official reading at the Jewell County Airport weather station recorded -23 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind chills approaching -45. The storm's impact on the regional power grid was catastrophic and immediate. At 4:52 in the morning on February 14th, the Southwest Power Pool, which manages electricity transmission across 14 states including Kansas, declared an Energy Emergency Alert Level 3, the highest designation. Natural gas pipelines froze. Coal piles at power plants turned to solid blocks of ice. Wind turbines across western Kansas iced over, their blades locked in place. By 6:30 in the morning, rolling blackouts began. By 8 in the morning, the blackouts were no longer rolling, they were sustained. More than 4.7 million customers across Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri lost power. In Jewell County, with a population of 2,932, approximately 1,847 residents, or 62.9%, were without electricity by midday on February 14th. For cattle ranchers, the mathematics of cold weather livestock management are brutal and unforgiving. A 1,400-pound beef cow requires approximately 12 to 15 gallons of water per day under normal conditions. In extreme cold, that requirement increases to 18 to 22 gallons, as the animal's metabolic rate rises to maintain body temperature. A herd of 200 head, which is typical for Jewell County operations, requires between 3,600 and 4,400 gallons per day in winter storm conditions. Most modern cattle operations in Kansas had transitioned to electric submersible pumps by 2015. Many upgraded to solar-powered systems with battery backup by 2019. The systems were efficient, quiet, and dependable under normal conditions. Winter Storm Uri, however, was not a normal condition. Tom Richter's phone rang at 7:14 in the morning on February 15th. He was already awake, huddled with his wife and 2 daughters around the wood stove in their farmhouse, the only source of heat since the power had gone out 37 hours earlier. The caller ID showed Ryan Moss. "Tom, it is Ryan. How is your solar system holding up?" Tom pulled on his insulated coveralls, bracing himself for the walk to the barn. "I was about to call you. The panels are completely covered with ice and snow. I tried to clear them yesterday, but the ice is bonded to the glass, and I cannot chip it off without cracking the panels. What about the batteries?" "That is the real problem," Tom said, stepping outside into air so cold it felt solid. "The monitoring system showed 82% charge at midnight, but when I checked at 6 this morning, it was down to 31%. The cattle have not had water since yesterday afternoon." There was a pause on the line. "Tom, that should not be happening. Those lithium-ion batteries are rated to -10 degrees Celsius with minimal capacity loss." "Ryan, it is -29 degrees Celsius out here right now." Tom's voice was tight. "The batteries are in the barn, not in a heated building. They are the same temperature as everything else." Ryan's response came slowly. "Have you tried running the generator?" "The generator has been running since yesterday, but it is burning through diesel faster than I expected, because cold weather cuts fuel efficiency by about 30%. I cannot get a delivery until the roads are clear." "How long can you keep it running?" "Maybe another 36 hours. After that, I am out." Tom ended the call and pushed through knee-deep snow toward the barn. The wind was relentless, driving ice crystals into any exposed skin. Inside the barn, his 200 head of Angus cattle were huddled together. Their breath rose in great clouds of condensation that froze instantly into curtains of ice fog. Their eyes followed him as he walked past. The water tanks were frozen solid. Tom swung a sledgehammer against the ice. It barely made a dent. One of the younger calves, a 4-month-old heifer, lay in the corner with her sides heaving. Dehydration was setting in. Tom knelt beside her and ran his hand along her flank. She was cold to the touch, colder than she should be. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. 3 other ranchers in the area. All of them had solar systems installed by Ryan's company. All of them were probably in the same situation. He made the calls anyway. 3 miles south, Harold Fink walked the same route he had walked every morning for 46 years. From the farmhouse to the barn, from the barn to the windmill, from the windmill to the stock tanks. The wind was howling out of the northwest at 43 miles per hour, with gusts to 58. The temperature was minus 26 degrees Fahrenheit. The sky was the color of steel wool. The Aermotor windmill was spinning at its maximum governed speed. The wheel was a blur of motion, the pump rod hammering up and down at 64 strokes per minute. Water, cold, clear, and flowing, gushed from the discharge pipe into the concrete stock tank. Harold had installed a small propane heater beneath the tank in 1998, after a particularly brutal winter. It kept the water temperature just above freezing, preventing ice formation even in the worst cold. His 180 head of cattle were gathered around the tank, drinking steadily. Steam rose from their nostrils and from the water's surface, creating a localized microclimate of relative warmth. The animals were calm, not stressed, not panicked, and not dehydrated. Harold checked the windmill's gearbox, feeling for excessive heat or unusual vibration. Nothing. He ran his gloved hand along the pump rod, checking for ice buildup. Clear. He inspected the wheel bearings, the tail vane, and the brake mechanism. Everything was operating exactly as it had been designed to operate 74 years earlier. It was converting wind energy directly into mechanical pumping action, with no electrical components, no batteries, no inverters, no controllers, and no points of electronic failure. The mathematics of the Aermotor Model 702 are elegantly simple. In a 40-mile-per-hour wind, the 20-foot wheel rotates at approximately 55 revolutions per minute. Each revolution drives the pump rod through one complete cycle of an upstroke and a downstroke. The cylinder pump, located 130 feet below ground, displaces 1 gallon of water per stroke. 55 strokes per minute equals 55 gallons per minute, or 3,300 gallons per hour, or 79,200 gallons per day. That is more than enough for 200 head of cattle. But the true genius of the design lies not in its maximum capacity but in its minimum dependability. Solar panels produce zero power at night and near zero power under heavy cloud cover, snow accumulation, or ice formation. Batteries lose capacity in extreme cold. Unlike them, the windmill operates on a resource that increases in availability precisely when it is most needed. Winter storms are defined by high winds. The same Arctic air mass that brings life-threatening cold also brings sustained winds of 30 to 50 miles per hour, with gusts to 70 or 80. These are precisely the conditions that drive windmill pumps to their peak performance. Harold's father, Otto Fink, had explained it to him in 1959 during another historic cold snap. Sohn, die Windmühle ist kein Luxus, sie ist Physik. Wind kommt mit Kälte. Wenn die Tiere Wasser am meisten brauchen, arbeitet die Mühle am besten. Son, the windmill is not a luxury, it is physics. Wind comes with cold. When the animals need water most, the mill works best. 62 years later, standing in minus 26-degree cold with 50-mile-per-hour wind tearing at his coat, Harold understood exactly what his father had meant. By mid-morning on February 16th, Ryan Moss had received 43 calls, 27 texts, and 6 voicemails. Every one of them was from a customer whose solar pumping system had failed. The problems were consistent across all installations. Ice-covered solar panels were producing zero power. Batteries were depleted to 15 to 30% capacity in extreme cold. Backup generators were running out of fuel. And most critically, livestock were going without water for 36 to 72 hours. Tom Richter's call came at 9:47 in the morning. "Ryan, I just lost my fourth calf." His voice was hoarse. "They are going down from dehydration and cold stress combined. I need water, and I need it now. Tom, I cannot get a service truck out there until the roads are cleared. And even if I could, the panels are frozen and the batteries are too cold to take a charge. Then what am I supposed to do?" Ryan did not have an answer. At 10:23 in the morning, Sarah Edmonds called from Republic County. "Ryan, my monitoring app shows the system is offline. How do I restart it?" "Sarah, if the batteries are below 30% in this cold, they will not restart. The battery management system locks them out to prevent damage. So what do I do? My cattle have been without water for 2 days. Do you have a generator?" "Ran out of diesel this morning." At 11:08 in the morning, Bill Kowalski called from Smith County. "The generator is running, but the panels are covered with a half-inch of ice. I tried using hot water to melt it, and I cracked 2 panels. What is my option for getting replacements?" "In this weather," Ryan said, "the earliest we can ship is next week, and installation will not be possible until temperatures get above freezing." "Next week? My cattle will be dead by then." Ryan had installed 47 solar pumping systems across Jewell, Republic, and Smith counties over the past 3 years. By his best estimate, based on the calls he was receiving, 42 of them were currently non-operational. 5 were functioning barely because their owners had managed to keep generators running continuously and had manually cleared snow from panels every few hours. At 11:23 in the morning, Ryan made the call he had been dreading. "Mr. Fink, it is Ryan Moss. I was wondering, is your windmill still running?" "Has not stopped," Harold said. "Why do you ask?" By the afternoon of February 17th, Harold Fink's farm had become an unofficial water distribution center. Tom Richter arrived first, towing a 500-gallon plastic tank on a flatbed trailer. His face was drawn and exhausted. He did not say much. He just nodded at Harold and backed the trailer up to the stock tank's overflow line. "Lost 6 calves," Tom said quietly as the water began to flow. "Could have been worse, but 6 is 6, Harold nodded. He did not offer empty reassurances. 3 more ranchers arrived within the hour. Sarah Edmonds drove up in a pickup pulling a 300-gallon tank. Bill Kowalski arrived with his teenage son, hauling a 400-gallon container. Each of them had the same look of fatigue, frustration, and a kind of grim determination. The scene was both medieval and modern. Diesel trucks hauled water from a 74-year-old windmill-powered well, distributing it to cattle that would otherwise die of thirst, despite being surrounded by 21st-century technology rendered useless by extreme weather. Ryan Moss arrived at 3:15 in the afternoon, not as a salesman but as an observer. He parked his truck and walked slowly to the windmill, studying it with an engineer's eye. The design was brutally simple. A multi-bladed wheel was mounted on a steel tower, geared to a vertical pump rod that extended down the well casing to a cylinder pump submerged below the water table. No electronics, no computers, no sensors, no batteries, just wind, steel, and mechanical advantage. "How often does it need maintenance?" Ryan asked. "Oil the gearbox twice a year," Harold said. "Grease the bearings, check the sucker rod for wear. Replace the leathers in the cylinder pump every 10 to 12 years. That is about it. And it has been running continuously for 4 days? Since 1947. Harold corrected. 4 days is nothing. It ran through the blizzard of '71, through the ice storm of 2007, through the drought of 2012 when the electric pumps were drawing down aquifer levels faster than they could recharge, never stopped." Ryan pulled out his phone and took several photos, then a short video. The windmill wheel was a hypnotic blur, the tower humming with mechanical energy, the pump rod hammering water to the surface with metronomic consistency. In the background, Harold's cattle drank peacefully, unaware that 3 miles away, Other herds were dying. Tom Richter finished filling his tank and walked over. "Mr. Fink, I do not know how to thank you." "Do not need thanks," Harold said. "Just doing what neighbors do." Tom glanced at Ryan, then back at Harold. "I should have kept the old windmill when I upgraded. I thought I was being smart, moving to solar. Turns out I was just being fashionable." Ryan flinched at that. It was exactly what he had been thinking. "Mr. Fink," Ryan said slowly, "I think I might have been wrong." Harold turned to look at him, eyebrows raised. "Not about solar," Ryan clarified quickly. "Solar is excellent technology in the right application, in the right climate, with the right backup systems. But I sold it to people as a replacement for windmills. I should have been selling it as a complement. Solar for the calm days, windmills for the storms. Redundancy." "My father had a saying," Harold said. "Wähle nicht die schönste Energie. Wähle die richtige Energie zur richtigen Zeit. Do not choose the prettiest energy. Choose the right energy at the right time." "That is actually profound," Ryan admitted. "Germans," Harold said with a faint smile, "are not known for pretty sayings. We are known for functional sayings." Winter Storm Uri officially ended on February 20th, 2021, though temperatures remained below freezing in Kansas until February 24th. The final toll was catastrophic. There were 246 confirmed deaths in Texas, at least 57 in other states, and an estimated $195 billion in property damage and economic losses. In agriculture, the damage was concentrated in livestock operations. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service documented more than $600 million in agricultural losses in Texas alone. Livestock deaths were hardest in areas where water systems had failed. Jewell County told a microcosm of the larger story. Of 43 cattle operations, 37 relied on electric or solar-powered water systems. Of those, 32 experienced complete failure, lasting 48 hours or longer. Livestock losses ranged from 3 to 14%, averaging 7.8% per herd. 6 operations relied on mechanical windmills. 5 reported 0 losses. The 6th lost 2% from a barn collapse, not water shortage. Harold Fink's operation reported 0 losses. The numbers were stark enough that Ryan Moss spent the next 3 months doing something he had never done before. He conducted research that might undermine his own business model. Ryan's methodology was straightforward. He compiled data from 214 cattle operations across Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Missouri, and northern Texas. He correlated water system type with livestock mortality rates during the 9-day period of Winter Storm Uri. He controlled for herd size, breed, barn infrastructure, and geographic location. The results were published in August 2021 at the Great Plains Renewable Energy Conference in Lincoln, Nebraska. Operations with mechanical windmill primary systems showed 1.2% average livestock loss. Operations with windmill backup plus solar or electric primary showed 3.7% average loss. Operations with solar primary and generator backup showed 8.4% average loss. Operations with electric primary and generator backup showed 9.1% average loss. Operations with solar or electric primary and no backup showed 12.6% average loss. Ryan stood at the podium, projecting the data onto a large screen. The room, filled with renewable energy engineers, agricultural extension agents, and USDA officials, was silent. "The pattern is clear," Ryan said. System failure rates correlated directly with technological complexity and dependency on external energy sources. Mechanical windmills, despite being the oldest technology in the room, had the lowest failure rate. He clicked to the next slide, which showed battery performance data. Lithium-ion batteries rated for -10 degrees Celsius showed a 63% capacity loss at -25 degrees Celsius, which was well within the range we experienced. Lead-acid batteries performed even worse, with up to 80% loss. A hand went up in the audience. What about solar panel performance? Ryan clicked again. Panels covered with 1 inch of snow had 87% power loss. Panels covered with ice had 94% loss. Neither condition could be safely remedied during the storm. Another question came from the crowd. And windmill performance? Ryan allowed himself a slight smile. Average pumping rates increased from 38 gallons per minute pre-storm to 67 gallons per minute during peak winds. That is a 76% increase precisely when demand was highest. The room erupted in murmurs. An older man in the back row, a county extension agent Ryan recognized, stood up. So you are telling us we have been decommissioning the most dependable technology we had? In certain applications, yes, Ryan admitted. In cold climates, with high wind availability and critical water needs, mechanical windmills are not obsolete. They are optimal. The presentation's final slide was a photograph of Harold Fink's Aermotor windmill spinning in the winter wind. It had a caption that read, "Right energy, right time, 74 years of continuous operation." The Aermotor Windmill Company, based in San Angelo, Texas, had been manufacturing mechanical windmills continuously since 1888. By 2020, annual production had settled at approximately 1,150 units. It was respectable for a legacy product, but hardly a growth market. Then Winter Storm Uri happened. In 2021, Aermotor received 2,707 orders. That was a 135% increase over the previous year. In 2022, orders jumped to 3,910. By the end of 2023, annual production had reached 5,060 units, which was a 340% increase over 2020 levels. Revenue had grown from $3.2 million to over $15.8 million. The company's CEO, interviewed in Farm Journal magazine in November 2023, was candid. "We thought we were in the nostalgia business. Turns out we are in the resilience business." The resurgence was not driven by romanticism. It was driven by ranchers who had watched animals die and were unwilling to risk a repeat. And extreme weather events, according to NOAA data, were becoming more frequent. The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service took notice. In October 2022, the agency updated its Environmental Quality Incentives Program, known as EQIP, guidelines. They added mechanical windmills to the list of eligible water system improvements for cost-share funding. The policy memo stated explicitly that the goal was enhanced resilience and reduced dependency on grid-supplied electricity. By December 2023, the agency had approved 1,273 windmill installations under EQIP across 12 states. This represented $11.4 million in federal investment in mechanical wind infrastructure. It was technology that had been written off as obsolete just 3 years earlier. Harold Fink celebrated his 77th birthday on March 8, 2024, 3 years after Winter Storm Uri. The Aermotor windmill, now 77 years old itself, continued to pump water with the same mechanical consistency it had demonstrated since installation. Ryan Moss stopped by that afternoon, as he did every few months. His business card no longer read Great Plains Solar Solutions. It now read Great Plains Resilient Energy Systems. "I installed my 48th windmill last week," Ryan said, leaning against the fence and watching the wheel turn. 3 years ago, I would have told you that was technological regression. Now I tell clients it is risk management. "What changed your mind?" Harold asked. "You did," Ryan said simply. "You and that windmill. I had spent my entire career thinking about efficiency, meaning maximum output per dollar invested. But you taught me to think about dependability, meaning maximum output when it is most needed, regardless of cost." Harold nodded slowly. "My father taught me that. His father taught him. It is not wisdom, really. It is just paying attention to when things break. Your father's saying, choose the right energy at the right time. I use that in every client consultation now, Ryan said. I tell them that solar is the right energy for July. Wind is the right energy for February. Having both is the right energy for survival. And they listen? After Uri, Ryan said, everyone listens. As of April 2026, the Aermotor Windmill Company reports a multi-year production backlog, with orders exceeding 7,800 units annually. The company has expanded its manufacturing facility in San Angelo and hired 67 new employees. It is their first major workforce expansion since 1949. The USDA now actively promotes mechanical windmills as part of its climate-smart agriculture initiative. They cite their zero-emission, zero-input, maximum dependability performance profile. Agricultural extension services in 17 states offer windmill installation workshops. A 2025 paper published in the Journal of Agricultural Engineering by researchers at Kansas State University came to a clear conclusion. The Winter Storm Uri crisis demonstrated that renewable energy dependability must be measured not by peak efficiency, but by performance correlation with demand timing. Mechanical wind pumps, despite their 19th-century design, outperformed 21st-century solar battery systems. This is because their power source, which is the wind, intensifies simultaneously with the environmental stressor, the cold, that drives water demand. Harold Fink's 1947 Aermotor windmill has been designated a historic agricultural resource by the Kansas Department of Agriculture. Tour groups occasionally stop by, and Harold tolerates them with bemused patience. They take pictures, he told Ryan during a visit in March 2026. They ask if it is solar-powered. I tell them no, it is wind-powered. They say, oh, like a wind turbine? I say, no, like a windmill. Then I have to explain the difference. What is the difference? Ryan asked. Fundamentally? Harold thought for a moment. A wind turbine makes electricity, which you then use to do work. A windmill does the work directly. Electricity is an intermediary. The windmill skips the intermediary. So it is more direct? It is more honest, Harold said. It does not pretend to be anything other than what it is, which is wind pushing steel and steel pushing water. No conversions, no transformations, no losses, just wind and water. Ryan nodded, watching the wheel spin in the afternoon breeze. Your father would be proud. My father, Harold said quietly, would say I was 50 years late figuring it out. But yes, I think he would be satisfied. The windmill turned. The pump rod hammered. The water flowed. 79 years old, and still the most dependable machine on the farm. Sometimes, Harold reflected, the old ways are old not because they have been replaced, but because they were temporarily forgotten. Winter Storm Uri had been a harsh teacher, but the lesson, once learned, was unforgettable. Choose the right energy at the right time, and when timing matters most, choose the energy that arrives when you need it, not when it is convenient.